Hi guys, it's Chris back again with another RVI trip tip. Today we're going to be looking at battery disconnects because this is going to be something that's going to come up a lot more and more as we continue to move forward into the future. This used to actually not be a thing at all, and slowly over the years as cars have become more complicated, computers have been added in under the hood, there's a lot more manufacturers requiring you to disconnect the battery. That can be to shut something off to prevent battery drain, or it can be to make sure something doesn't come on while you're driving, like a steering wheel lock or something of that nature that's a safety feature. So the big thing to note is that if your owner's manual specifies that you need to disconnect the battery, you must disconnect the battery. There's no way around that. There's no shortcut to that. We just have to disconnect the battery. So you can use a number of different kinds. There's some electronic ones where you just push a button and it disconnects the battery. There's more mechanical ones like the ones we sell on our website for a side or a top post that is just a little lever that you permanently mount, and then you just twist that lever and disconnect the battery. So what do you do when you have an RVibrake 3 and you need to disconnect your battery? So in cases like that, you're going to want to use something like our 12-volt battery direct kit. This is just an auxiliary outlet. You can find something similar at a local auto parts store, but essentially it's a female 12-volt outlet with two wire leads, positive and negative, and they go straight up to your battery. The only real difference between using this with a battery disconnect and using it without is that when you go to attach it to the battery on the negative side where you're disconnecting, you're going to want to install the negative or the ground wire for this outlet on the side that is not getting disconnected. So in other words, on those two sides, you have the side with your battery wiring. It doesn't go over there. It goes on the side that stays connected to the battery post. So usually you have a little locking nut and bolt, and it attaches right to that. It's a really easy way to continue to power your brake. This will provide you with live power even when that battery is disconnected. So what about when we have our RVibrake Shadow or a Towed Battery Charger Plus? How does that change when we add those two items in? So let's start with the Towed Battery Charger Plus. Usually when you have to disconnect your battery, we would encourage not using a charger of some kind. It just adds an unnecessary step and headache, and it's really not necessary because at that point the brake is the only thing pulling on your battery, and it doesn't merit a charger if it's the only thing there. It's just not pulling enough power. So at that point, your charger is really kind of a redundancy, and on top of that, it's much more complicated to install. And so for those reasons, if you have to disconnect your battery, just use the disconnect and the RVibrake 3. Don't worry about charging it. However, if you're using a Shadow, obviously the charging component of the Shadow becomes necessary because with the Shadow, the charger is essentially the on-off switch. So we have to have that. So what do we do there? So when we're using a Shadow, we need to change the way that we install our disconnect. Normally, the protocol for disconnecting your battery is to disconnect the negative post. However, if we were to do that and then install our Shadow, again, attaching the negative to that post side of the disconnect, what is actually going to happen is that the Shadow is going to complete the circuit on the battery, and it's really going to be like you never disconnected your battery in the first place. So that's obviously a problem. So to fix that, that's where we need to add an extra step. So essentially what we need to do instead when we're installing a Shadow is either disconnect the positive post of the battery instead of the negative, or disconnect both. And so by doing that, we eliminate the ability of the Shadow to complete the circuit, and at that point everything should stay disconnected when you actually go to turn that valve or push that button. And again, the principle from earlier stays the same. We just need to install the Shadow on the post side of the disconnect rather than on the side with all the rest of your wiring. So as long as you do that, everything should be good to go, and you should be able to use your RVibrake Shadow normally. So again, if you're using a disconnect, it's really important that we make sure that we just wire things up correctly. We just need to add a 12-volt battery direct kit in the instance of the RVibrake 3, or in the instance of the RVibrake Shadow, we just need to basically disconnect the battery a little differently than we normally would. So if you've got any questions about using either of our braking systems with a disconnect, or really any of our other products, don't hesitate to reach out. We're available by phone, chat, or email. And in the meantime, happy RVing.